What if I told you there's a secret formula for influence? You know, a way to actually get that promotion, or win a tough argument, or even understand the massive power shifts happening around the globe? Well, according to a former CIA officer, there is. And today, we're going to dive into this powerful framework taught inside the agency, one that scales from your personal life all the way up to international strategy.
So what is this magic formula? Well, the central idea is that the CIA teaches a specific, totally learnable skill set to understand and influence human behavior. And the key thing to get here is that it's not magic at all. It's a system. It's an approach that works because turns out all of our brains are wired in a surprisingly similar way.
All right, so the very first part of this formula is all about finding what they call the levers of motivation. The agency teaches its officers to start by forgetting everything that makes us different. The core idea is that human psychology is fundamentally the same. Doesn't matter if you're in a boardroom in New York or a farm in rural China. Deep down, we're all running on the same basic hardware. Now, in the world of intelligence, the goal here has a very specific name. It's called winning compliance. It sounds kind of technical, but it just means getting someone to go along with your goals or your direction. It's the absolute foundation of influence. So how do you get it?
Well, it starts with this simple but really powerful acronym, RICE. This thing represents the 4 universal levers that motivate every single human being on the planet. R is for reward. Basically, what's in it for me? I is for ideology. What do I believe in? C is for coercion. What bad thing am I trying to avoid? And E is for ego. How does this make me look and feel about myself?
And the source is clear. This concept is absolutely universal. Once you understand RICE, you will start seeing it everywhere. I mean everywhere. Parenting, business deals, leadership, your own relationships. You can think of it as the basic operating system for human motivation.
Okay, so that makes sense. But what happens when you're up against that second lever, ideology? We've all been there, right? Stuck in some heated argument where your facts and your logic just seem to bounce right off the other person. Well, the source gives a fascinating reason for why that actually happens.
You're essentially using the wrong tool for the job. You're trying to fight an emotional right brain belief system with cold, hard left brain logic. It's like trying to unlock a door with the wrong key. They literally operate in different hemispheres of the brain and, they just don't connect.
So here's the crucial part. A direct attack on someone's ideology feels like an attack on their very survival. Their brain literally registers your logical points as a threat. And what happens? It triggers a defensive fight or flight response. And that's exactly why people double down on their beliefs, even when they're staring at irrefutable facts.
So what's the CIA train approach? It's a 3-step dance. First, you validate their feelings. That lowers their defenses. Second, you use that moment to build rapport, what the agency calls social capital. Then, and this is the clever part, instead of offering your solution, you flip it. You make it their problem to solve. You just ask, okay, I hear you, I understand how you feel, so what do you think we should do?
So if that's how you deal with one person's ideology, how does this thing scale up? Well, this next section explores what's called the radicalization ladder, and it shows how these exact same principles can be used to understand how entire groups get driven to extreme action. The mechanics are the same, just on a much, much more dangerous scale. This is the really unsettling question that the source material asks, and the answer is, it's not random. It's a systematic, predictable, and even scalable process. It's not really about evil people. It's about a process that can be applied to almost anyone, which is a pretty scary thought. This process, the radicalization ladder, it really just has 2 core steps. First, a person has to experience or at least perceive a huge injustice, like something is taken from them or they're wronged in a really big way. But second, and this is the key, that feeling of injustice has to be validated by an outside source, a group, a leader, an online community, something.
And this, for me, is maybe the most shocking point in the whole thing. This 2-step psychological process is identical across the entire political spectrum. The same mechanics that can create a religious extremist are also at play in the most radicalized groups on the far left and the far right. The ideology is different, sure, but the process of getting there, it's exactly the same. Okay, so let's take these principles of influence and just zoom all the way out. I mean way out, to the global stage. Because winning compliance and understanding motivation don't just apply to people, they apply to entire nations. The source argues that ever since World War II, America has basically been running the RICE playbook on a global scale.
So here's how the playbook worked. Right after World War II, America rebuilt its allies and even its former enemies, like Europe and Japan. This was the reward lever in action, big time. But it wasn't just charity. See, over the next few decades, this huge act of goodwill created a global system that became deeply, deeply dependent on the US.
And what was the result? A world where almost all international trade runs on the US dollar, where tech advancements are driven by American innovation and intellectual property, and where global supply chains, more often than not, lead right back to American companies. This became the foundation of American dominance for decades.
But here's the twist in the story. While America was busy perfecting this playbook, someone else was watching. Someone else was taking notes, and for the last 20 years or so, they've been running the exact same plays.
I mean, just look at the parallel here. The Marshall Plan rebuilt Europe after the war, creating allies and dependencies. China's Belt and Road Initiative is doing the exact same thing today, building these massive infrastructure projects across Asia, Africa, and Europe to create its own network of economic dependency. They are straight up emulating the American process.
And according to the source, the United States got strategically outmaneuvered because we were completely blind to what was happening. We were so focused on our own priorities that we didn't even realize our own playbook was being used against us.
And what was that great distraction? The global war on terror. From 2001 on, America poured pretty much all of its resources, attention, and strategic thinking into conflicts in the Middle East.
And while America was distracted, China wasn't fighting that war. No, they were watching, they were learning, and they were executing. They took the American playbook for global influence and they just ran it, methodically, for over 2 decades.
And they did it really effectively. They copied American technology, they built their own telecom infrastructure from the ground up, completely skipping the whole landline phase, and they systematically bought up mineral rights and land all over the world. See, they didn't have to invent a better system, they just had to get as good as ours while we were looking the other way.
So this all leaves us with one massive question. From the 4 levers of personal motivation all the way up to the grand strategies of nations, these frameworks for influence are clearly incredibly powerful. But the source makes one final, kind of chilling point. The playbook is out now. It's public. It's been proven to work. So the only question left is, who's going to run it next?